Hello everyone. Hopefully you've come through this link from the QR code on your work booklets, and I'm just here to give you guys a little bit of help on this question. This TNCs provide a huge range of opportunities for NEEs and LICs. To what extent do you agree with this statement? So again, as per with a lot of these videos, we're looking at a 9-mark question here, and it's asking you to what extent. So let's just underline this as well. So to what extent do you agree with this statement? And this is like quite a classic question for this topic. Really, it's asking you to think more deeply about whether TNCs are actually a positive thing in the countries that they work in. And obviously for us, that country is Nigeria. So just a bit of a geography brain to try and help you answer that 9-mark question. So the way that I've broken this down is to look in social and economic and then environmental. So let's start off with our social and economic impacts. Let's have a look. So social and economic. Okay, and I've grouped these together because often I find that they typically interlink quite a lot. So let's start with a positive. So transnational corporation. We look at Shell, and we'll do this as a little case study in a second, but often they bring in employment and new skills into areas where new skills are often quite limited in the amount that they are provided by local businesses or governments. What we often tend to find when TNCs move into these countries as well is that local businesses can almost get in on that money or take some of the contracts that are being offered by TNCs. So local businesses improve and grow. Further from that, and this is really important, they get valuable export revenues. So when they sell on the goods or the mineral resources that are mined or manufactured, for example, they are able to gain export revenues, and that can, when we start to think on knock-on effects, can then be spent on things like schools, hospitals, etc., that, or literacy or education, that can then go on to really improve the development of the countries that we're interested in. Okay, let's have a quick look at some of the negatives then. So first of all, one thing I think is important to think about, especially for Nigeria, is should we not be thinking kind of Nigerian industry first? Okay, so we have these big multinational corporations, TNCs, coming in to these countries, but what really happens to Nigerian industry? Are we really supporting Nigerian industry by allowing huge companies to come in and extract that mineral wealth? Perhaps not. Furthermore, some of the lower working jobs can be quite poorly paid and can be quite dangerous as well. When we think about oil rigs in Nigeria, they're reasonably well paid on the oil rigs, but however, they're extraordinarily dangerous. Okay. Another thing to think about here is that managerial jobs often go to people who are not born in Nigeria. Okay, so if we just pop it like this, so managerial jobs go to expats. Expats is a word, it's expatriate, which means that they're basically the people who aren't originally from that country. And finally, something to just think about as well is that often the major amount of profits end up going abroad. So if we put profits go abroad. Okay, start to think about some social and economic positives and negatives, and now let's just have a quick look at environmental. So I would generally say for this, we want to go down a kind of balanced route as all the time. But sometimes I feel like often in the environmental, it's very negative. Okay, often these companies are gaining profit from the expense of the natural environment, and that's what I've put here. So development at the expense of the natural environment. Okay, what I would suggest you do, if you're using this as like a revision crib sheet, something like that, is just to underline some of these things in green and red. Sometimes I like to do that when I was doing my GCSEs, and it just helped me to start to think about categorising positives and negatives. So let's just do that. And then some of the, okay, as well, we just had a negative down here for environmental as well. And let's go with green for the positives. So we're already starting to see that in our evaluation we need some balance, because we have positives and we have negatives that seem to be occurring. Let's have a quick look at our case study, and that is Shell Corporation, or Royal Dutch Shell as it's formerly called. So if we have a look at, and we just write Shell. So some of the positives that Shell has brought in to Nigeria is it's a really major tax contributor. Providing 65,000 jobs to local Nigerians. But actually it's supported, or estimates are up to about 250,000 jobs across Nigeria and across different industries. And 91% of the contracts that Shell give out go to Nigerian companies. Okay, so negative. One of our big negatives, of course, is something we've looked at, is that the Bodo oil spills. So we could say here, oil spills and flaring, which is where we burn off gas. Also, militant groups often get involved in the pumping and piping of the oil, okay, and we have a quick look at some of the images of how they impact that as well. So there are negatives as well, if I just put negative there. And you can do a similar thing if you like with green and red. So let's recap quickly here. So we know then, if we just bring it back to the question, to what extent do we agree with this statement? Well, already we could say it does provide opportunities. I mean, absolutely, there's no doubt about it. Social and economic provides all different types of opportunity, and then we can prove that with the involvement that Shell has had. However, we need to be questioning as well, and that's what geography is all about. It's about evaluating and questioning. And we can see here that there are some real negatives due to the involvement of TNCs in countries. So, as always, actually, let's do this in a black, make it a bit more bolder. As always, I really think for evaluation questions, it's worth drawing a line. Now, personally, I think there's a lot of balance, okay? There's some really good positives, but there's really big negatives as well. So I think, ultimately, TNCs do provide opportunities in NEEs like Nigeria. However, there are some really strong arguments against the involvement in TNCs that must be recognised as well. One interesting thing to come back on though is just having a look at HDI, so Human Development Index, and we could pretty quickly draw a graph of HDI against years, and it very much goes like that. In fact, Nigeria has one of the world's highest HDI improvement records, okay? And that, to some degree, is caused by the influence of TNCs within that country. Okay, I hope this has been of use. And as per usual, if you have any questions about what we're learning about here, please come and see me or Mr. Sturtevant, rooms A181, A182 in the geography department, and we'd be more than happy to discuss any of your ideas or thoughts. Okay, thank you very much.